Everybody, normally this is the part where me and Jake would say something that at least we think is funny, but we wanted to get straight to the point. This video is for people who are about to play their first session of D&D, and we want to take some of that stress off, tell you what to expect and what you can do to improve the process. So, listen up. Hey everybody, I'm Josh from JNJtabletop. With me, as always, is my good friend Jake from JNJtabletop. And today we are going to be talking about your first time playing D&D. There's a lot of stress that comes with a first time session. I know I certainly felt it, right up until I started playing, and especially the weeks leading up to it, as I stressed and looked over my character sheet and said, does that do what I think it does? And all right, let me take this protection fighting style because I think that'll come in handy. But yeah, so there's a lot of things that we think you could do to make that process a little easier. I think Jake's gonna help us out. What would be your first piece of advice?
Yeah, the very first thing I would suggest you do, and yes, this is a shameless plug, but subscribe to this YouTube channel right now, because we have a ton of resources that, at the very least, like, we think we're funny, we think it's good content. So it's going to be helpful for you if you're, want to learn a specific class. Like, we have a whole intro playlist. We have, you don't understand how combat works and actions and things like that. We have videos on that. If you're into how to choose spells, I'm a little confused at that process. We've got a lot of resources for you. And if you're a dungeon master or want to become a dungeon master at some point, again, we're going to have some resources for you. But another thing I think would be really helpful is to go onto D&D Beyond and look at the basic rules. We're going to put a link to that in the doobly-doo down below. And I think that's going to be very helpful if you're like, because I know some people will actually just like overstudy for something a little bit, kind of like the experience you just shared, Josh. That's going to really help maybe reduce your anxiety by having a resource that you could just like pour over that's not going to cost you any money. Not yet anyways.
Yeah, and I think it is nice, and really, I guess your players of your age, not making any jokes, are the people who are going to say that we have it way better. And I think we do have it way better now, where there are so many resources available, so many free resources available, whether it is D&D Beyond using the free guide, or whether it's Fight Club 5e. You could literally have the entire player's handbook, the entire rules, or just the basic rules right there on your phone. And that's kind of huge. So when it comes to like making a character, let's say it's your first time making a character ever. You're not at the table yet. Maybe you're at home. Maybe you're going over the book. What's that process look like? How do we make that easy?
Yeah, so you're going to choose your race, you're going to choose your background, but the biggest choice really is the class that you're going to have. And again, we've got a playlist that goes over an introduction to each of the classes that you find in the player's handbook. Yeah, so take a look at the thing that's over my shoulder right now, and that'll help get you started. And then, Josh, when we were putting together the notes, you brought up a really good point, and just read the abilities that your class has. Actually, your race might have some too, and then just ask questions. You're not going to understand them completely, but as long as you can have a general idea as to what they might be useful for, if this is your first time, that's kind of all that I would ever. Actually, if a first time player came to my table with that, I would be excited as a DM. I would be like, "Hey, you kind of have an idea. You were paying attention, weren't you? This is nice."
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like, you don't necessarily have to know what all your abilities do. I think that's something that a lot of people say when what they mean to say is just read your abilities. Because like, it's your first time playing, you don't know what all the dice rules are. All the dice rolls are. When it says D6 plus D8 or roll against a con save or something like that, you don't always know exactly what that means, and nobody expects you to pour through the rule book trying to figure out what that means. But especially like choosing spells, choosing abilities, that kind of thing, don't just read the title of it. Read the actual description, think about it for a second, and then ask your DM if you have questions.
Yeah.
They're going to be, like Jake said, just going to be excited just that you read it and that you have a question.
And if you feel intimidated by that, like if the DM seems like they're busy with something, number one, it's okay to just wait your turn, but there might be another helpful player at the table or in a group chat or whatever. This is the game where everybody wants to really kind of have some fun together. So if you have jerky people that you're playing with, maybe you just not a good situation to begin with, but hopefully you could read that ahead of time.
I think that's another thing I would just add. If we don't really have a section for this, but I would just say, you want to have a good time playing, first time playing, play with people you trust. And it's not to talk bad about like Adventures League and games that happen in whatever pickup game, whether you're doing a game on like Fantasy Grounds or something like that. But your first time playing, there's a lot of horror stories out there for just going with groups of random people. Personally, my first time playing, I would definitely like to play with a group of people that I feel comfortable with, because it is a little bit of an uncomfortable thing role playing for the first time. It's weird, it's different, and you are sharing your creativity, your mind space basically with people. You are sharing your imagination with everyone, and unless you're an artist or a writer or you make movies or something like that, that's probably something that you've never done before, and that's a very personal thing, I think. So you should do it with people you trust. But
that's good advice, Josh.
All right, so now you've made your character, you found a good group. What does the game actually look like? What is it going to be like when you're at that table?
For the most part, the game is basically in 3 stages at all times. The very first thing is the dungeon master is going to describe a scene or a situation or setting, whatever you want to call that, to the players. Then the players are going to either ask the dungeon master questions about what they just heard, or maybe they'll say something that they want to do or interact with in some fashion. And after that, the dungeon master is going to tell the players how that goes and whether or not they need to roll dice or some kind of check. And if they want you to do something specific, they will tell you. Like, say if a merchant is telling you a price, you want to say like, hey, does this guy seem like he's jacking the price up on me? You might say, roll an insight check, whatever the case may be. That's just a quick example. And if you're curious about seeing this rhythm in action, actually, our very first video that we ever did, I prepared a really small, quick adventure for Josh to go on, and he walks you through it from the player's point of view. So I highly recommend that you go check that out. It's as far as a one shot goes, it's extremely quick.
I want to say it's like 40 minutes or so, and that it's literally just today we're gonna do this. All right, I want to do this. That means that I'm gonna do that. So it's pretty straightforward. It's a good way to learn.
Yeah, and then that whole process just will repeat over and over again.
Yep.
Combat's like that. It just has some more structure to it. But you'll see that in the video that we just mentioned, and just follow along and ask questions. If you don't understand something, just ask a question. It's fine.
Yeah. It's a game of questions and answers, and then dice rolls when you need an element of randomness in there. That's it. Heather, do you have any like closing thoughts or words of advice or affirmations for someone who might be walking in to their very, very first game ever?
Very first game ever, I would say, just as best you can, ask any questions you have, laugh at the mistakes that you will make, and realize that this is a game that people are trying to have fun with. Some tables are sillier and just absolutely wacky. Some go for more like, role-playing heavy and stuff like that. Hopefully you had a session 0, which is just a pre-game meeting where you could maybe ask some of those questions that might be nervous for you, and get a feel for some of the other players at the table that you might be playing with. And really don't sweat the rules too hard at all, because eventually it just all makes sense. And I still ask questions, and I've been playing this game for over 30 years. I ask questions of Josh, and he's been playing for less because he's the dungeon master, and whatever game he is running might have a little bit different flavor than maybe another game I played in. No matter what it is, everybody's on the same team, looking to have a good time.
Yeah, I think that's it in one sentence. Everyone is there to have a good time. Don't flip out about it. Don't stress. Have a good time. You have questions, ask him. If you have any other questions for us, put those down in the comments below. A lot of the videos we do are videos that were requested by our friends and our followers and, subscribers. So we definitely listen to all the questions you ask and all the feedback you give us. So we appreciate it. And if there is anything specific you want us to go over, let us know. Send us a message, comment. Not a smoke signal. Don't do that. We don't know how to read those.
Yeah, especially indoors, that's probably not the best move.
Do you know if can I do this thing?
What thing?
I guess I need to explain the thing I'm talking about. I'm trying to find I'm trying to figure out if Google Docs has dark mode. Because I've
Is that why you look like a ghost right now?
Yeah.
I know that if you have it on your phone. Oh, there it is. You just did dark mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.